Marcus Hale hadn't noticed the small figure standing beside his table until she spoke. "Excuse me, mister. Here's $50. I just need a dad for one day." He looked up from his untouched coffee, and there she was, a girl no older than 7, with tangled brown hair and eyes that held far too much sadness for someone so young. Her tiny hand extended toward him, clutching crumpled bills that looked like they'd been saved for months. The entire coffee shop seemed to hold its breath. Marcus was used to people wanting things from him. As CEO of Hale Industries, he'd built an empire from nothing after losing everything that mattered. But this stopped him cold. "What did you just say?" His voice came out rougher than intended. The girl didn't flinch. "Tomorrow's the father-daughter dance at school. Everyone has a dad except me. I saved my allowance. $50 for one day. That's fair, right?" Something cracked inside Marcus's chest. Something that hadn't moved in the 3 years since the accident that took his wife and daughter. This child's desperation mirrored his own hollowness so perfectly it hurt to breathe. Before he could respond, a young woman rushed over, face flushed with embarrassment. "Emma, oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir." Emma, we talked about this." The woman looked exhausted in a way Marcus recognized. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her nurse's scrubs were wrinkled, and there was a weariness in her shoulders that spoke of too many double shifts and not enough hope. "Please," Emma whispered, tears pooling. "Everyone will laugh at me if I'm the only one without a dad. Please." The mother, Sarah, he heard her name badge read, gently pulled Emma back, apologizing profusely. But Marcus couldn't look away from the little girl's face. It was the same desperate plea his daughter Lily used to make when she wanted him to leave work early, to come to her recitals. To just be there. He'd always promised her, next time. There never was a next time. "Wait." Marcus's voice cut through the murmured apologies. His hand reached out, not for the money, but toward the little girl whose courage outweighed her size. "What time does it start?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Sir, you don't have to." 6 o'clock, Emma breathed, hope flickering across her tear-stained face. "Tomorrow at Lincoln Elementary." "But you really don't." "I'll be there." The words left his mouth before his brain could catch up. "Keep your money, Emma." As mother and daughter left the coffee shop, Emma practically glowing, Sarah looking back with confused gratitude. Marcus sat frozen. What had he just agreed to? He hadn't been around children since Lily died. He'd built walls specifically to avoid this kind of pain. But something about that little girl's courage, about a child so desperate for something as simple as a father's presence that she'd offer her life savings to a stranger. Marcus looked down at his hands. The same hands that had once braided his daughter's hair and pushed her on swings. They were shaking. Outside, the autumn sun was setting over the city, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Marcus didn't know it yet, but his answer to one desperate little girl was about to change everything, for both of them. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough, and yet he dreaded it with every fiber of his being. Marcus stood in front of his closet at 5 a.m., staring at rows of expensive suits like they were enemies. What did you wear to a father-daughter dance when you hadn't been a father in 3 years? When the last time you held a child's hand, it was your own daughter's, cold and still in a hospital bed? He settled on something simple. Dark jeans, a button-down shirt, no tie. He didn't want to look like the billionaire CEO everyone knew from business magazines. He wanted to look like a dad. The problem was he'd forgotten how. The memories came anyway, uninvited. Lily at 6, spinning in her pink dress before her first school dance. "Daddy, do I look like a princess?" She'd always been his princess. And then one drunk driver, one moment of shattered glass and twisted metal, and she was gone. His wife, too. Everything gone. Marcus gripped the edge of his dresser, steadying himself. He'd promised Emma he wouldn't break another promise to a little girl. Not again. By 5:45 p.m., he was parked outside Lincoln Elementary, watching families arrive. Fathers in sports jerseys and polo shirts, laughing with daughters in sparkly dresses. His chest tightened. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe. A tap on his window made him jump. Emma stood there in a light blue dress that was slightly too big, probably a hand-me-down, her hair pulled back with a clip. But she was beaming like she'd won the lottery. "You came," she whispered as he stepped out. You actually came. I promised, didn't I? Sarah stood a few feet back, arms crossed, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Protective, grateful, wary, all at once. Mr. Hale, Marcus, please. Marcus. She said his name like she was testing its weight. I still don't understand why you're doing this. Emma told me that you're someone important, rich. You could be anywhere right now. He looked at Emma, who was nervously smoothing her dress. So could you. But you're here working double shifts to give her everything. That's more important than any boardroom. Something flickered in Sarah's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Before she could respond, Emma grabbed Marcus's hand with the trust only children possess. Come on. They're starting the father-daughter waltz soon, and I need to show you the steps. Inside the gymnasium, decorated with paper streamers and twinkling lights, Marcus felt like he'd stepped into another lifetime. The DJ was playing upbeat songs while little girls dragged their fathers onto the dance floor. Emma led him to the refreshment table first, chattering nervously about her favorite subject, science, and how she wanted to be a doctor like the ones who tried to save her dad. Marcus froze. Your dad? He died when I was 4, Emma said matter-of-factly, the way children do when they've lived with grief long enough for it to become routine. Cancer, I don't remember much, just that Mom cried a lot. She still does sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. The pieces fell into place, Sarah's exhaustion, Emma's desperate offer, the way they both carried loss like invisible weight. They were just like him, survivors trying to move forward when part of them remained trapped in the past. My daughter died 3 years ago, Marcus heard himself say. Car accident. She was 7. Your age. Emma's small hand found his again, squeezing tight. Did it hurt? Being here tonight? Yes, he admitted. But also, it feels right, like she'd want me to be here. Then we can be sad together, Emma decided. But also happy. That's what Mom says. You can be both. When the DJ announced the father-daughter dance, Marcus's heart hammered. But Emma pulled him onto the floor, and as the slow song began, he placed his hand on her shoulder the way he used to with Lily. Emma stood on his shoes, giggling as they swayed. Around them, other fathers smiled indulgently at their daughters. None of them knew that the man in the simple button-down shirt was worth more than all their annual salaries combined. None of them knew he was dancing with ghosts as much as with the brave little girl in his arms. Thank you, Emma whispered. This is the best $50 I never spent. Marcus laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in years. Best deal I ever made. But across the gym, Sarah watched them with tears streaming down her face, and Marcus wondered what it cost her to let a stranger into her daughter's heart. What it cost to trust again when life had already taken so much. He didn't know then that Sarah was hiding something too. Something that would change everything. The dance ended at 8. With Emma chattering excitedly about how Mr. Marcus taught her to spin properly, and how Jenny Martinez's dad said they looked like a real father and daughter. Sarah walked slightly behind them toward the parking lot, quiet in a way that made Marcus's instincts prickle. Something was wrong. As they reached his car, a modest sedan he kept for occasions when he didn't want attention, Emma ran ahead to look at the other departing families. That's when Sarah touched his arm. I need to tell you something. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Before this goes any further. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Emma's already attached to you. I can see it. And I can't. She swallowed hard. I can't let her get hurt again. So you need to know the truth. Marcus waited, watching emotions war across her exhausted face. Emma's father, David, he wasn't just a good man who died. He was everything. He was my high school sweetheart, my best friend, my whole world. When we found out about the cancer, terminal stage 4, we had 6 months. 6 months to say goodbye, her voice cracked. He made me promise I'd let Emma have a normal life, that I wouldn't let grief define us. But it's so hard, Marcus. I work 60-hour weeks at County Memorial just to keep us afloat. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment because I can't afford anything bigger. Emma wears hand-me-downs and saves her allowance for things like this, buying a father for a day, because she knows we don't have money for extras. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Sarah, I'm telling you this because I saw your watch. I saw your shoes. I'm a nurse, but I'm not blind. You're Marcus Hale, aren't you? The Marcus Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, billionaire. I looked you up while Emma was getting ready. The words hung between them like a verdict. I don't want your charity, Sarah continued, lifting her chin with fierce pride. Emma, offering you $50 wasn't about money. It was about dignity. About earning something instead of being pitied. If you're here because we're some project, some way to ease your guilt about your own daughter, stop. Marcus's voice was firm, but not unkind. Just stop. A family walked past, little girl giggling on her father's shoulders. They both waited until the parking lot was quiet again. You're right. I'm Marcus Hale. And yes, I have money more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But you know what money can't buy. He turned to face her fully. It can't buy back time. It can't bring back my wife and daughter. Can't fill the silence in a house that's too big for one person. It can't make me feel human again. Sarah's defenses wavered. Emma didn't offer me $50 for a transaction. She offered me something priceless, a reason to remember what it feels like to matter to someone. To be chosen, not for my money or my name, but because she saw something in a stranger drinking coffee alone that made her think, maybe him. But why? Sarah's question was almost a plea. Why would you do this? Help us? You don't know us. Marcus looked over at Emma, who was drawing something in the condensation on a car window. Because 3 years ago, my daughter begged me to leave work early for her recital. I said no, I had a meeting. Always another meeting. And that night, driving home from the recital I missed, a drunk driver crossed the center line. His voice went hollow. I don't get to fix that. I don't get to go back and choose her first. But maybe I can choose to show up for someone else's daughter. Maybe that's how I learned to live with it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. We're not your redemption story, Marcus. No, he agreed. You're not. But maybe we can help each other survive. You need support. Emma needs stability, opportunities, a chance at the life her father wanted for her. And I need... He paused, searching for words. I need to remember that the world still has good people in it. That not everything is boardrooms and bottom lines. Before Sarah could respond, Emma ran back, breathless. Mom, Mr. Marcus, did you see the stars? They're so bright tonight. Marcus and Sarah looked at each other over Emma's head. An understanding passed between them, tentative, fragile, but real. Emma, honey, say thank you to Mr. Hale, Sarah said softly. It's Marcus, he corrected. Just Marcus. Emma threw her arms around his waist in an unexpected hug. Thank you for being my dad today. It was perfect. As Marcus watched them drive away in Sarah's old Honda, brake light flickering, clearly needing repair, he pulled out his phone. A single text to his assistant. I need information on County Memorial's best cardiac nurse named Sarah. Full background. And find out what they need. He wasn't looking for charity opportunities. He was looking for a way to give two people who'd lost everything a chance to rebuild without crushing their pride. There was a difference. One he was determined to honor. What Marcus didn't know was that across town, in a penthouse office, someone else was watching security footage from the school parking lot. Someone who'd been looking for Marcus Hale's weaknesses for years, and they'd just found one. Marcus didn't expect to hear from Sarah again. Their parking lot conversation had felt like closure. Honest, painful, complete. So when his phone rang at 6 a.m. 3 days later with an unknown number, he almost didn't answer. Mr. Hale? Sarah's voice was tight with panic. I'm sorry to call so early, but something happened and I don't know who else. What's wrong? Marcus sat up immediately, old protective instincts flaring. Emma's school. They called me in for an emergency meeting about her tuition. We're on financial aid, but suddenly they're saying there's a problem with her enrollment. And last night, my shift supervisor pulled me aside saying there were complaints about my performance. Marcus, I've been nurse of the month 3 times this year. This doesn't make sense, Marcus's jaw clenched. He recognized this pattern. Corporate warfare. Someone was targeting Sarah, and he had a sinking feeling it was because of him. Don't go to that meeting alone. I'm coming with you. You can't just... Yes, I can. Give me the address. 2 hours later, Marcus walked into Lincoln Elementary's administrative office in a full suit, every inch the CEO he usually tried to hide. Sarah stood when she saw him. Confusion and relief warring on her face. The principal, Mrs. Henderson, was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes that didn't match the uncomfortable conversation she clearly had to have. Ms. Brennan, as I was explaining, we've received some concerning information about your financial stability and whether you can maintain Emma's enrollment here. What information? Marcus's voice was ice. Because Ms. Brennan is a decorated nurse at one of the city's top hospitals. Her financial aid application was approved months ago. Mrs. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Hale, I appreciate your friendship with the family, but this is a school matter. It became my matter when someone started targeting a single mother and her daughter. Marcus placed a folder on the desk. His assistant had worked fast. These are records showing Ms. Brennan's impeccable payment history, her stable employment, and her daughter's excellent academic standing. Unless you can show me legitimate cause for concern, I suggest we end this meeting. What Marcus didn't say aloud, he also knew that Lincoln Elementary's largest donor had recently been acquired by Coleman Industries, his biggest corporate rival. Jackson Coleman, the CEO, had been trying to destroy Marcus's reputation for years after losing a major contract. This was a message. Get close to anyone, and Coleman would hurt them. After the meeting ended, Emma's enrollment secure, Mrs. Henderson apologizing profusely, Sarah followed Marcus to the parking lot. Arms crossed. What just happened in there? Marcus leaned against his car, exhausted. You got caught in someone else's war. Sorry, explain, now, so he did. He told her about Coleman Industries, about corporate rivalries that spilled into personal vendettas, about how Jackson Coleman had made it his mission to destroy anything Marcus cared about. He must have seen us together at the dance. Security cameras, social media, something. And now he's going after you to get to me. Sarah's face went pale. So this is my fault? For accepting help? No, it's my fault for being too visible. For thinking I could have one normal night without consequences. Marcus's voice was bitter. This is why I stopped letting people in. Everyone I care about becomes a target. For a long moment, Sarah just stared at him. Then, surprisingly, she laughed, harsh and broken. You know what's funny? David used to say that caring about people made you weak, made you vulnerable, and I told him he was wrong. That love was the strongest thing we had. She stepped closer. You want to know what I learned watching my husband die? That hiding from pain doesn't stop it from finding you. It just makes you more alone when it does. Sarah, no, listen. You think pulling away from us protects us? It doesn't. It just means we face whatever Coleman throws at us without you. But if you stay, if you fight back, then maybe, just maybe, we all come out of this stronger. Marcus wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that she didn't understand how ruthless people like Coleman could be. But then he remembered Emma's hand in his at the dance. The first moment in 3 years he'd felt like something other than a ghost. If I stay, this gets worse before it gets better, he warned. Then we better prepare for worse. Sarah's voice was steel, wrapped in exhaustion. Because Emma's already asked when she can see you again. And I'm not going to tell my daughter that she loses another father figure because some corporate asshole decided we're not worth protecting. That afternoon, Marcus made calls. To his legal team, his security detail, his board of directors. If Coleman wanted war, he'd get one. But this time, Marcus wouldn't fight alone. He also did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He drove to a toy store and bought a microscope set for a little girl who wanted to be a doctor. Not an expensive one, just the kind a dad would buy for his daughter who loved science. When he dropped it off at Sarah's apartment that evening, a small, neat space filled with Emma's artwork and the lingering smell of home-cooked dinner, Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. You remembered. I told you I liked science. Of course I remembered. Marcus knelt down to her level. Scientists need proper equipment, right? As Emma tore into the box with pure joy, Sarah caught his eye over her daughter's head. Thank you, she mouthed. Marcus nodded. What he didn't say, he was already having Coleman investigated. Already preparing countermeasures. Already planning to protect this little family with everything he had. Because Sarah was right. Hiding didn't stop pain, but fighting for something worth keeping? That was how you survived. And Marcus Hale hadn't survived building an empire from nothing by backing down from bullies. Coleman had just made the worst mistake of his career. He'd given Marcus something to fight for again. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in his boardroom surrounded by lawyers, investigators, and a mountain of evidence that would bury Jackson Coleman's career. But he couldn't shake the feeling that winning this corporate battle would cost him something more valuable. His phone buzzed. "Sarah, Emma won the science fair. First place. She wanted you to know." Marcus smiled. A real, unguarded smile that made his assistant do a double take. He'd been at every one of Emma's project meetings, helping her build a volcano model that explained chemical reactions. He'd gone from billionaire CEO to homework helper in less than a month, and somehow that felt like his greatest accomplishment. But Coleman was escalating. The threats had moved beyond Sarah's job and Emma's school. Now there were whispers about Marcus's mental stability, questions about whether grief had made him unfit to run Hale Industries. The board was getting nervous. "Sir?" His legal counsel, Margaret, pulled him back to the present. "We have enough to file charges. Securities fraud, corporate espionage, witness intimidation. Coleman will be lucky to avoid prison time. Do it." Marcus's voice was final. "File everything." That evening, he drove to Sarah's apartment for their now weekly dinner routine. Emma had started calling him Marcus Dad, a nickname that made his heart ache and heal simultaneously. Sarah had stopped apologizing for accepting help, though she stubbornly insisted on cooking for him in return. Her way of maintaining the dignity she'd fought so hard to protect. Tonight felt different. Sarah was quiet as Emma showed off her first-place ribbon, practically vibrating with pride. Marcus lifted her in a spin, and her laughter filled the small apartment with pure joy. After Emma went to bed, Sarah poured 2 glasses of wine. Cheap, but she served it like it was the finest vintage. "I heard about the charges against Coleman," she said quietly. "It's all over the news. They're calling it the biggest corporate scandal of the decade." Marcus shrugged. "He earned it. You did this for us. I did it because it was right." Marcus met her eyes. "But yes, also for you." Sarah was silent for a long moment, turning her wine glass in her hands. "Emma asked me today if you were going to be her real dad now. Not just for one day." Marcus's breath caught. "I told her that real families aren't always about biology. That sometimes the people who choose to stay are more important than the people who have to." Sarah's voice trembled slightly. "I told her that if she wanted to ask you herself, she could." "Sarah, I'm not asking you to marry me, Marcus." She laughed, but it was thick with emotion. "I'm not even sure I'm ready for that kind of relationship again. Maybe I never will be, but Emma needs you. And honestly, so do I. Not your money or your protection. Just you. The man who shows up for science projects and father-daughter dances. The man who remembers what it feels like to be human." Marcus set down his wine glass, hands shaking. "When Lily died, I thought I died too. I built walls so high nothing could reach me. And then a little girl offered me $50 and asked me to remember what it felt like to be someone's dad." He looked at Sarah. Really looked at her, this fierce, exhausted, beautiful woman who'd survived loss and kept moving forward anyway. "You both saved my life. You know that, right?" "We saved each other," Sarah corrected. "That's what people do when they stop hiding." The next morning, Marcus made another call, not to lawyers or investigators, but to his estate manager. "I want to set up a trust fund. For medical school or whatever Emma chooses, but make it look like a science scholarship she earned, not charity. And find Sarah a better apartment, something safe with good schools nearby. Handle it quietly." His assistant started to take notes, but Marcus held up a hand. "Also clear my schedule every Wednesday. That's science project night, non-negotiable." Over the next months, Marcus watched Emma grow more confident, watched Sarah's exhaustion fade into something softer. He taught Emma to ride a bike in the park, sat through countless school concerts, and learned to braid hair through YouTube tutorials when Emma decided she wanted fancy hair for picture day. People talked, of course. The press had a field day with reclusive billionaire's surprise family. But Marcus discovered something remarkable. He didn't care. Let them talk. He'd spent 3 years caring about the wrong things. One evening, 6 months after that first father-daughter dance, Marcus and Sarah sat on a bench watching Emma play with other kids at the park. The setting sun painted everything golden, and for the first time since the accident, Marcus felt peace. "She's happy," Sarah observed. "Really genuinely happy. So am I," Marcus admitted. I didn't think that was possible anymore. Sarah took his hand, tentative, testing. He laced his fingers through hers and held on. Thank you, she whispered, for staying.
For fighting.
For choosing us. Thank you for letting me. Marcus smiled as Emma ran toward them, gap-toothed grin bright as starlight. She offered me $50 for one day. Best investment I never took. Emma crashed into both of them, wrapping her arms around their shoulders. Movie night? Marcus' dad promised we could watch the science documentary about space. As they walked toward the car, Emma between them, chattering excitedly about Mars rovers and distant galaxies, Marcus realized something profound. He'd spent 3 years trying to escape grief. But healing didn't come from running away. It came from running toward something worth the risk of hurting again. Sometimes heroes don't wear medals anymore. Sometimes they're little girls brave enough to ask for help, mothers fierce enough to keep fighting, and broken men willing to try one more time. Sometimes $50 buys you more than one day. Sometimes it buys you a second chance at living. And sometimes that's exactly what saves you.